Hello there. It is Sunday, January 26th, 2020, 6:05 in the evening. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different again this week, but this time it will actually have something to do with writing. First, little progress report. I've decided to focus most of my attention for now on, excuse me, going back through what I have written of my vampire novel, Under the Dark of the Moon. I got 75,000 words or so into it and stopped because I was coming up on a very big action sequence and I didn't know what happened. I have since plotted, or at least made general notes, which is as close to a plot outline as I get, for at least the initial action and what happens afterwards. So hopefully when I get caught up to that, I'll be able to just move on with it and get it finished. That would be nice. I do say I'm focusing on this, but I'm not going to be exclusively working solely on this. I will be taking breaks along the way to work on the other projects, so I don't want them to flounder while I focus on this. Plus, I have other ideas bouncing through my head as well. So I'm one of those writers who I got come up with a lot of ideas and not a lot of time to write them. So, but what I'm doing right now, I want to do a couple things. I'm typing up actually, as I talk to you, chapter 8 of Under the Dark of the Moon, which now puts us into book 2. I've got it right now divided into 5 books. It possibly will go to 6. I have to see when I finally get through it, how it all shakes out. I'm probably going to release. Well, I'm not going to do anything until the story is finished. But I'm probably going to release one book at a time, and then take it from there. But what I do is I rewrite a chapter and then I type it up. This way I don't fall too far behind. That's what happened to me with the first go around on the story. I was writing, which was great, but I wasn't typing anything up, and then I was spending more time typing than actually writing. So this way, type a bit, write a bit, and just keep progressing forward. But let me show you my setup here. There's my desk, my keyboard, monitor, refreshing beverage. Yeah, that's the stack of old CDs that I use as a camera stand for my phone when I'm recording. We're a budget operation here. And there's what I've typed so far. I'm 4 typed pages in. What I do is I tend to change fonts. Hang on. I do change fonts as whenever I type. If I don't finish this, if I have to save it and come back to it, say tomorrow night when I get home from work, or down the road or later in the week, I'll change the font again. It's just something to keep it visually interesting in my mind, because as much as I love writing, I hate typing. I really do. So, give me and so what I wanted to talk about tonight is endings. Talked about beginnings, we're talking about endings. There are a couple different ways you can bring your story to an end, as long as the plot line comes to a satisfactory end, at least for that story. Um, there are hopeful endings, hopeless endings, open endings that lead directly to a sequel. Um, I I tend to go for more hopeful endings. Something that gives the reader hope that some things are going to go right for the characters down the road, and that things will be okay for them. But there's also the endings that are open that leave you thinking, okay, there's going to be a sequel to this. If you look at the original trilogy of Star Wars, for example, when The Empire Strikes Back came out, uh, the ending actually was kind of open because we were left with a lot of things dangling. What happened? Were they able to rescue Han? Was the whole reservation with Vader being Luke's father? What all happened with that, which led directly into Return of the Jedi. As I said, tend to go for more hopeful endings. I'm bringing that story to a close, and this way, if you just want to read the one story, you've got a complete story. But if I do write another story about these characters, you might be interested. You might be interested in picking up that next story to see what happens with the characters next. That's what I did with On a Cold Wind. The story ends with our main bad guy has escaped. He's gotten away from Carly and Murphy, so he's still out there. And I actually do have two more stories planned for after On a Cold Wind. One of them I had actually started writing, called Dissembler, and one day, yes, I know I say this a lot, I'll get back to it one of these days. I'm trying to get caught up on other things first. I'm trying not to start new stories. That's why the new stories popping up in my head are so frustrating. Excuse me a moment. I have to gather my thoughts. The reason I go for the more hopeful ending as opposed to one that leads directly into a sequel is, given the way I write, I don't know if I'm ever going to come up with a sequel. I don't want to leave somebody dangling, waiting for a book, waiting for a story I might not ever write. The closest I ever get to that is on a couple of the novellas, Brianna and the Three, and Upon a Far Distant Shore. I did say at the end, the story of Brianna Pandora or the story of Artemis Jean is not finished. Basically saying there's more to tell. We'll get to it. And that works best for me. I tend to work in a more serialized way as opposed to series way. Serialized meaning the stories do take place one after the other, but they're not necessarily sequels. For example, Wanderer, which is going to be the next book to come out. You could think of it as kind of a sequel to On a Cold Wind, because Carly is in it, Murphy's in it, the twins Alexa, of course, Alexa's the main character. Wesley is in it. All the characters from D5 are in it, but it's not directly related to On a Cold Wind. It takes place in the same organization, the same group of characters, but it's an entirely different adventure. That's serial, as opposed to series like Wheel of Time, Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, George R. R. Martin, Game of Thrones. Yeah, sorry, I never watched I never watched the show. I can't afford Amazon Prime. And so that's actually a series. I write in a more serial way. Stories do lead one to another, but they're not interconnected. So if you want to read Wanderer, you don't have to have read On a Cold Wind. For example, I also have a sequel to The Fault Lies Not planned called Jedna, which introduces androids to my universe. Later than Next Gen, by the way. Anyway, so if you wanted to just read Jedna once it's finally written, you can read that without having to read The Fault Lies Not first. And what works best for you is what works best for your story. You have to look at your story and how it goes. I mean, if you have a big story, like for example, Under the Dark of the Moon, I'm dividing it into 5 books. The one book leads to the next. So you really have to read them one in the other. This is a serial. This is as close to a serial as I'm ever going to get. Because most of my ideas don't last 100,000 words. Most of my stories top out at about 25 to 35,000 words, novella length. And that's what I have to say about endings. This is the way. And so that's it for this week, guys. I'm going to keep it a little shorter this week. I'm not going to be talking too much. I got a lot of typing I have to do, so I want to get that chunked out as fast as I can. All the links to the books are down below, as is the social media links. If you're here for the first time, hi. If you like listening to me babble like this, please hit the subscription bar and notification bell. I try and do videos every week, either on Saturday or Sunday. I had to work yesterday, so that's why I didn't do it yesterday. Yeah, hopefully I'll be staying on the schedule, and hopefully I'll have something a bit more coherent for you down the road. Until then, though, remember, we are each of us the heroes of our own stories and the villains of someone else's. See you next week, guys. Bye.